Hello and welcome. I'm Kriti Mehta and you're watching the World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at the top headlines this hour. Ukraine's military strikes the Yefremov synthetic rubber plant in Russia's Tula region and a storage facility for marine drones in Russian-occupied Crimea overnight. The Ukrainian military said that the Yefremov plant specializes in the production of components for plastic explosives and solid rocket fuel. A Turkish foreign ministry source says the Turkish foreign minister Hakan Fidan met with Hamas political bureau officials in Ankara to discuss the ceasefire in Gaza and advancing the agreement to its second phase. The European Union, France and Germany condemn US visa bans on European citizens combating online hate and disinformation, with Brussels saying it could respond swiftly and decisively against the unjustified measures. Australia's New South Wales passes sweeping new gun and anti-terror rules following the mass shooting on Bondi Beach, tightening firearm ownership, banning public display of terror symbols and strengthening police power to curb protests. Russia plans a nuclear power plant on the moon within a decade, plant to power joint Russian-Chinese research. Pentagon report highlights China's military ties with Pakistan and cautious thaw with India. A Pentagon report submitted to the US Congress indicated China's dual-track strategy with India, decreasing tension along the line of actual control. US President Donald Trump's administration says will slap tariffs on Chinese semiconductor imports over Beijing's unreasonable pursuit of chip industry dominance, but would delay the action until June 2027. Sanofi to buy US vaccine company Dynavax Technologies for around $2.2 billion, a deal that will give it access to an approved hepatitis B vaccine. And viewers, let's start with some top stories. Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan has offered condolences to Libya following the death of Libyan Army Chief of Staff Mohammed Ali El-Haddad in a plane crash near Ankara. The jet went down shortly after taking off from Turkey's capital en route to Tripoli. 4 members of the Libyan delegation and the flight crew were also killed. Erdogan said he extended his sympathies to the Libyan people, the armed forces and the government. Listen in.
Dün Ankara'dan Trablus'a giderken kaza kırıma uğrayan uçakta şehit olan Libya Genelkurmay Başkanı Orgeneral Muhammed Ali El-Haddad'ın başkanlığını yaptığı Libya heyetine ve uçak mürettebatına Rabbimden rahmet niyaz ediyorum. Libya halkına, Libya Silahlı Kuvvetlerine, hükümetine aynı şekilde başsağlığı diliyor. Ülkem ve milletim adına taziyelerimi sunuyorum. Bizleri derinden üzen elim hadiseyle ilgili gerekli tahkikat başlatılmış.
Turkish officials said the private jet, a Dassault Falcon 550, reported an electrical failure and requested an emergency landing minutes after departure from Izinboga Airport. Contact with air traffic control was lost before the crash. Recovery operations were underway at the site, with Turkey's Chief of Staff and senior military officials visiting the area as investigations into the cause of the crash continue. Joining me in this discussion is Shyam Batra. He is a British politician and political commentator from London. Thank you, Mr. Batra, for joining us here at NewsX World. Do you think there is a possibility of a foul play into the crash that needs investigation?
It sounds very suspicious. Thank you for having me today. It sounds very suspicious. I mean, a private Falcon 50 jet carrying Libyan's chief of general staff Mohammed Ali Ahmed al-Haddad. I believe that they were in coalition with each other with various different things in Ankara and stuff. And Erdogan's quite right to put a formal investigation in. I think there has been some kind of foul play. It's very unusual for planes of this magnitude, especially a private Falcon jet, to have some kind of malfunction. I mean, I do understand that there has been a lot of hackings going on in the world, and technology is being somehow controlled. So planes could divert and crash and do other things. But I mean, it's very ominous coming up to near Christmas time as well. And he's quite right to answer it because there are 3 Turkish crew members involved in this situation. So the cause of death, I mean, the black boxes may say something, but there could have been a bomb on there. There could have been some kind of sabotage. They don't just, these type of Falcon jets, I know about Falcon jets, but I know that they are very, very strong and they're robust in avoiding their situations, especially in situations like this. But I'm quite shocked, actually.
All right, sure. Well, thanks for your comment there, but we now move on and I request you to stay on. Because Belgium's King Philip has reaffirmed his country's firm support for Ukraine in his Christmas address, warning that Europe's peace is under threat from hegemonic ambitions, particularly Russia's war in Ukraine. Speaking from the royal palace, the king said Belgium's commitment to the Ukrainian people remains resolute despite recent debate over frozen Russian assets. His remarks come after Belgium blocked a proposal at the European Council to use those assets for a reparation loan to fund Ukraine, citing legal risks and the lack of a strong solidarity mechanism to protect member states. King Philip also urged unity within the European Union and encouraged Belgians to value the bond that unites them. Let's listen in.
L'Europe s'est construite sur un projet de paix qui lui a permis de prospérer. Cette paix, notre bien commun le plus cher, est aujourd'hui menacée par des ambitions hégémoniques, en particulier en Ukraine. Chez nous, le gouvernement, l'engagement de notre pays aux côtés du peuple ukrainien reste ferme et résolu. Notre position dans le dossier des avoirs russes ne le remet aucunement en cause. C'est le moment d'être tous solidaires au sein de l'Union européenne. Ne laissons personne nous diviser. Ensemble, nos démocraties sont bien plus robustes qu'on ne pourrait le croire.
And I request Mr. Batra to join us back in the discussion here. Mr. Batra, how do you view the King's statement coming in, particularly after the Belgium leadership has only gone on to signal quite the contrary, you know, not allowing the use of frozen Russian assets to restructure war-torn Ukraine?
Message. Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, go on, please.
Yeah, so it's a very fascinating story because how has the king got involved at the last minute? These funds have been frozen for a very, very long time, and Ukrainian funds, the situation, hello, I think the signal's gone
No,
wrong.
we can hear you loud and clear. Please go on.
Yeah, okay, so basically the situation is that I don't agree with the king or his methods. These funds are supposed to be held in trust until this war ends. These funds are not meant to be used technically to run Ukraine's operations. And, you know, it's very fascinating for this because he's just got a loan from 90 billion, I should say, from the European Union. And how that's happened, I don't know. Why does he need more funds? Where are the funds that he's been using? And why do they need to use Russian funds constantly when they don't need to use Russian funds? The Russian funds are there for a purpose, and that's not the purpose that they're supposed to be used for. And I think the Belgian banks are quite happy in keeping those funds for the time being. at the end of the day. And then they want to give a loan to Ukraine, which I think is completely wrong. First of all, there should be firm negotiations going into place to sort this mess out, not just give more money to start making more wars, more fights. This is never going to end. And this is hurting our world. You know, our food stocks and everything else in the world are being dissipated. We're having to use all types of different methods. We can't use Russian products anymore. We can't use other products anymore. And it just clogs the whole world. So I don't think the king is right in this occasion. And he's coming at the very, very last minute when he could be involved in negotiations to help solve the problem, not give the funds away to somebody else when it's not really Ukraine's funds. You know, this is a very small circle here in banking law. You know, you don't just take the funds and give it away to someone. They have been there for a position. And until Putin is involved and says that he can give those funds away to Ukraine, which he's never going to do, he has to keep a strong hold on it. It's ludicrous for him to come at the last minute during Christmas when we're supposed to achieve peace with Trump and his guys. I don't know what's happening there either, because the last Miami summit didn't really go down as well as it planned to be. And there's no way Putin is going to backtrack. So when he says something, he does it. He doesn't go backwards like the European Union does. And I've always said, there are too many chefs in the kitchen. This needs to be dealt with properly. Those funds should remain where they are for the time being until the matter is resolved. And if the matter is resolved amicably, then yes, the funds should go back to Russia or whatever the case may be. This is not about money. This is about a war. That's the thing.
Right. And do you think there's some kind of communication needed, of course, between the Prime Minister and the King, especially after it was, Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban has raised heaps of praise on Alexander De Croo?
Well, I mean, his comments came on the backdrop of European tensions, as I said to you. There's billions of funds frozen in sovereign assets held by mostly in Belgium. But I still stand by what I've just said. The source of funds are not going to fix the war. You know, he's getting enough money. He's had so much money. If you calculate from 2022 to today, I hate to say to you, he's had several $100 billion or pounds or whatever you want to call it, plus what the previous president of America gave him. There is no track of where this money seems to disappear. Next month, he'll come back again and say, oh, we now need another 100 billion because we haven't got any fighter jets. You know, only about 18 months ago or so, their people only learned how to fly the fighter jets. And I don't know how well or good that's been. But either this is a proper war, and this is a war that needs to have a real fight, or this is a proxy war where, you know, money is being switched hands. And I don't agree. I don't think, and I think a lot of people will agree with me, it's not about supporting Russia or Ukraine. I'm in the middle. But as a human being, I don't think it's correct that those funds and that king has suddenly come out with and said, oh, we should give the funds to Ukraine. What for? He's not in control. That's not his money.
All right. So a little too late, you're saying, is a king's comment coming. Well, thanks very much, Dr. Sham Batra, for joining me in this discussion. Viewers, moving ahead now, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has accused Hamas of violating the Gaza ceasefire. The warning comes after an explosive device detonated against an Israeli military vehicle in southern Rafah earlier today. One officer was lightly injured in the incident. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu's office has said that Hamas must fully uphold the October agreement. It has also called for Hamas to be removed from power in Gaza, hinting at the demilitarization and de-radicalization of the territory. Last week, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said that a new governance structure for Gaza could be coming soon. It would include an international board and Palestinian technocrats. Foreign troops are also expected to be deployed to help enforce the fragile ceasefire. Shaul Shatka now joins us in the discussion here. He's a political commentator from Tel Aviv. Nothing new that's coming out in the statement, Shaul. What do you think?
Absolutely not. No, the situation in Gaza has reached a kind of culmination whereby almost all the hostages have been freed. Only the body of the deceased Officer Rangvili remains in Hamas captivity, and the IDF remain in occupation of approximately 60% of the Gaza Strip, where they are currently fortifying their positions with a view to staying there in the medium term at least. And that will remain the case until Hamas, number one, hand over the remaining body they're holding, and number two, and far more importantly, hand over all the weapons and disarm, which is part of stage one. Reality, of course, they are a Islamic jihadi organization bent on the destruction of Israel and more besides, and there's absolutely no prospect of them doing that willingly. And what their plans going forward, there are various plans being worked on, but as of now, it's unclear how this will resolve.
All right, just stay on with me, Shaul, as we move ahead to some more news now coming in. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has strongly criticized Israel for deliberately obstructing humanitarian aid to Gaza. Under the ceasefire agreement, 608 trucks were meant to enter Gaza daily. But Erdogan says that Israel has repeatedly blocked the deliveries using fabricated excuses. Speaking at a political meeting in Ankara, Erdogan has called the obstruction unacceptable and pledged that Turkey would significantly increase its humanitarian support to Palestinians. He has framed Turkey's stance as one that promotes peace but refuses to accept justice. And I invite Shaul to join us back in the discussion here. Shaul, would you say that Turkey has in fact gone on to become the biggest strategic threat to Israel now?
No, absolutely not. Turkey doesn't particularly pose any strategic threat to Israel. In fact, I happen to know that Turkey has recently renovated and re-established their embassy in Tel Aviv. They have absolutely no way to project power against Israel, but their population, because of decades of mal-education, are radicalized against Jews and Israel and more. And as a result, in order to keep his population happy, he needs to say these things. At the same time, there is a level of collaboration between Israel and Turkey on various fronts. And this is all bluster. And the same applies across many Muslim countries, where in public they will say these kind of things. And then, of course, Israel responds, and on and so on. But it's all really a game, because what's happening behind the scenes does not reflect what's being said in public at all.
All right. Shaul, do stay on with us. There's some breaking news now coming in from Bangladesh. Viewers, one person was killed in a bomb blast in the Mog Bazar area of Dhaka in the latest incident of violence in Bangladesh's capital. According to authorities, cocktail bombs were hurled from a flyover towards the office of the 1971 Liberation War Veterans Association. The blast caused panic in the area, which also has a church located nearby, raising concerns over security. Police and emergency teams rushed to the site and launched an investigation to identify those responsible. The incident comes just days after a Hindu man was lynched and media offices were attacked and set on fire, heightening fears of escalating unrest. Authorities have stepped up security in sensitive areas as tension remains high in Dhaka. Now moving ahead, viewers, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said Israel will spend $110 billion to develop an independent arms industry, aiming to reduce the country's reliance on foreign suppliers, including allies. Speaking at a ceremony for new Air Force pilots, Netanyahu stated the following. Listen in.
אנחנו נמשיך להצטייד ברכש חיוני ובמקביל נחמש את עצמנו בצורה עצמאית. אני לא יודע אם יש דבר כזה מדינה שהיא כולה עצמאית, אבל אנחנו נשאף לכך שהחימושים שלנו ייוצרו ככל הניתן במדינת ישראל. אלה לא מילים. לפני כמה שבועות אני אישרתי, יחד עם שר הביטחון ושר האוצר והצוותים שנמצאים כאן, סך של 350 מיליארד שקל בעשור הקרוב, לבנות תעשיית חימוש עצמאית למדינת ישראל. אנחנו רוצים לצמצם את התלות שלנו בכל גורם, גם בידידים. מיטב המוחות בתעשיות הביטחוניות שוקדים על פיתוח אמצעי לחימה שיבטיחו את היתרון של ישראל בשדה הקרב העתידי.
He admitted full self-sufficiency may not be possible, but said Israel would strive to produce as much of its weaponry as possible at home. Netanyahu said the strategy is designed to ensure long-term security and strategic independence amid regional instability and global supply uncertainties. I request Shaul Satka, political commentator from Tel Aviv, to join us back in the discussion here. Shaul, do you think this was much needed?
Absolutely. One of the critical issues that Israel faced during the 2-year war, in which it really defeated all its enemies around it, was that it was dependent on foreign nations for supplies, particularly the United States. And at various points, when there was a relatively unfriendly elements within the Biden administration who didn't want to see Israel win its war, there were certain restrictions based on the supply of the weapons, and that retarded the process of Israel's victory over Hamas, including a number of bulldozers and so on. That can never be allowed to happen again, not just because in any future conflict it will make the war go slower, but because if it is known that Israel is dependent on other nations for weapons, that sets a motive for all the hostile actors around the world to target those nations and creates the motivation between the propaganda campaign that we've seen waged against Israel. I very much look forward to seeing, and we can see as it's happening, the cost of the war to Israel is gradually being paid back. The financial cost is gradually being paid back by the fact that Israel got to battle test its weapons, some of the best and most advanced weapons in the world, while everyone was watching, and everyone could see that these genuinely are the most effective weapons available. And as a result, as the war has come to an end, there are extraordinary numbers of orders in the tens of billions coming in to buy Israeli weapons. And that will support the Israeli weapons industry to be self-sufficient, and will mean that essentially Israel can provide its own weapons and will no longer need to be dependent on anyone else for them.
What is this also signaling about Israel-US ties?
I'm sorry?
What is this really also signaling about Israel's ties with the United States?
It could well be that Netanyahu has noticed the tea leaves in America, and he's noticed that both on the far left of the Democratic Party and the far right of the Republican Party, there are people who want Israel. And he is concerned, and justly so, that if someone from the far left or the far right end up being a presidential candidate and end up winning, which is possible, then Israel will no longer have the support of the United States potentially in the long run. It's far more complicated than that, and I think that's a pessimistic view, but nevertheless, it's absolutely critical to plan for pessimistic eventualities in case they occur. And that is certainly, I think, and I think Netanyahu has been open about that, something that's been on his mind over the past few months.
All right. Well, thanks for now, Shaul, for joining us in this discussion. And with that, viewers, we're going to move ahead. Now, ties between Serbia and Russia have been described as worrisome for Kosovo by caretaker Prime Minister Albin Kurti ahead of Kosovo's early parliamentary elections on December 28. A normalization agreement signed under European Union auspices in 2023 is yet to be implemented, he said, and mutual recognition is still needed. Kosovo has also agreed to host up to 50 migrants with help from the United States as part of strengthened ties with Western partners. Let's listen into what the Kosovo's caretaker PM has said.
Normalizing relations with an authoritarian regime of your neighbor who does not recognize you, neither admits crimes committed in the past during the war, it's quite difficult. However, we do have an agreement for normalization of relations. We call it basic agreement. Between Serbia and Russia, there is a plethora of links from military ones. Then there is a lot of energy links, since oil industry of Serbia is owned by 56% by Gazprom. Then there is Sputnik in Russia Today, whose center is in Belgrade for our region. And there are cultural, historical links. Definitely, if Russia decides to have a spillover effect of their march westward towards Europe, they will count on Serbia as an ally. And this is worrisome for our country. However, we're working closely with our partners. We have agreed with US that we are going to receive up to 50 migrants. So far, one has arrived. And we don't want any kind of financial support for that, because we are doing that so we can help US. And US is a partner, ally, and a friend.
And that's all we have time for, but do keep watching NewsX World for more news and updates from around the world.